Hello and welcome to this month's PDU podcast webinar. And joining us from Michigan today is Dr. Andrew Makar. Hello, Andrew.
Hello.
Many of our listeners won't know you, so let's take a look here on the right side of this presentation. We have your speaker bio, but I also have your biography printed here, and it says that Dr. Andrew Makar is an IT program manager with delivery experience across projects, programs, and portfolio in automotive and financial management industries. He is an enthusiastic leader who effectively translates project management theory into practical application. In addition to his IT management role, he is an author, instructor, and lecturer on a range of project management topics, including PMO management, ERP implementation, application portfolio management, and infrastructure management. He frequently publishes on ganthead.com, and additional published works have appeared in Projects at Work, as well as the Software Test and Performance magazine. He is also an adjunct professor at Lawrence Technological University and Davenport University. When he isn't working, writing, or teaching, he's found playing with his kids and learning the occasional card trick or two. So tell me, Andrew, your doctoral thesis, what was it all about?
So my doctoral program was from Lawrence Technological University, and there it was a doctorate of management and information technology degree, where my actual thesis was on assessing critical success factors in earned value management.
All right. And with that, we are already moving on to the topic of today's presentation. And why don't you introduce us to that, please?
In tonight's presentation, I was going to call this a technical study in human performance factors using collaboration technology in a distributed environment. However, the reaction I thought I would get from you would look like a little bit like this. A big snore. So instead of that, actually, the title of this presentation is going to be Free Project Collaboration Tools That Rock, which this will be a combination of several tools that I use to effectively implement collaboration in project management.
All right, this presentation consists of 3 modules. In the first module, that's the one you are watching right now, we are going to be discussing collaboration challenges, and Andy will be introducing you to the what's wrong with how we collaborate today. In the second module, we are going to be reviewing the 4 tools, and then in the final third module, Andy's going to go into the caveats and the how to get started. And with that out of the way, we're moving into the learning objectives and outcomes. And as you know, the PDU podcast is designed following the most current standard of PMI's registered education program quality requirements. And in accordance with these quality requirements, each of our webinars includes learning objectives, learning outcomes, and an assessment of these outcomes. The objectives we have for you are the intended result of today's instruction. They also contain learning outcomes that we want you to achieve, so that what you learned is measurable. Together, objectives and outcomes describe the significant and essential learning from this presentation that you as the learner will have gained, and that you can also demonstrate in an assessment at the end of the webinar. And with all of that said, at the conclusion of this presentation, you will be able to select collaboration challenges, identify useful collaboration features for a distributed workforce, indicate which collaborative software is most appropriate to create a WBS, determine how to create automatic status reports, and indicate how to create virtual task lists for professional and personal project management. And as I mentioned earlier, the PMI's REP program quality requirement states that the learning outcomes must be assessed. This assessment will be done through an online test in which we will measure your achievement of these learning outcomes.
Now, in our first module, we're going to examine some collaboration challenges. Now, think about the term of collaboration. How do you actually define collaboration? Collaboration is defined as the action of working with someone to produce or create something, or something produced or created in this way. Now we think about the way we use collaboration and understanding the definition. How do you actually collaborate with your teams today? If you think through some of the items, we have co-location, we have mobility support, we have file servers, we use web-based repositories to share documents, instant messaging, text messaging, and we'll even use WebEx or teleconferencing solutions, all in the name of collaboration. Of course, you got to wonder, do these tools really help facilitate collaboration? So you think of the first example, I took the file and I put it on the file server. In today's Web 2.0 world, we go ahead and we put it up on the website. Often people will give you a voicemail, and now it's translated into, well, didn't you get my text? And finally, the one we all use all too often is, I sent you an email. And then in the Web 2.0 world, here we are with, well, yeah, still, I sent you an email.
Nothing much has changed there, huh?
Not at all, nope. So let's look at some of the challenges with these current solutions. Today, if I look at my inbox, I currently have 512 unread email messages. What do you think the probability is that I'm going to actually find that email that you sent me in a timely manner? When you hear the term, hey, I put the file on the file server, or they tell you they put the file in SharePoint or whatever web repository they're using. When you think about it, putting a file on a file server or a web-based document sharing repository, it's really the equivalent of finding a digital needle in a digital haystack. So it makes you think, are we really collaborating? We're talking about working together, yet the way we interact, the way we use these tools, it almost seems like we're pulling in different directions.
And I also think they make you a little bit lazy, don't they? Because, I've put the file on the file server. I've done my bit. Now it's your job to go out there and find it.
Absolutely. And as you see in the next slide, you see here in the next slide here, it talks about, is technology really an excuse? I mean, are we using technology today as an excuse for not really working together? That's why I thought the Dilbert cartoon of, I did nothing today and still got paid kind of seems relevant. Because if I sent you the email, I left you a voicemail, I texted you, or I IM'd you, it was all an example of how we're saying we're collaborating, but are we really working together? So if technology is being used as an excuse, you got to wonder, are we getting better productivity? Did we replace the file? Actually, did we replace the file server with web-based tools, claiming better productivity? Or are we in a position where, I'm sure many of you have done this, and I'll raise my hand, I'm guilty of it as well. But how many of you have actually said, hey, you sent an email rather than picking up the phone and going to actually see somebody to resolve an issue? So ultimately, there's got to be a better way. We got to have a better way of working together. And so it makes you wonder, what if we actually were able to integrate our communication and the documents that we use with the actual project tasks that we're actually working on? Instead of hunting through an inbox and hunting through all your different emails and archives, you would go to the actual task that you're working on. And in that task, it would contain threaded discussions, comments from each of the different collaborators, and the actual requirement document that is relevant to the specific task that you're working on in your project schedule.
Right. Let me make sure I understand exactly what you're saying here. So the image here, I think, says it all, but just so I'm clear on this. Today we have a document, right? And I have to send you this scope document or whatever it is via email. So I have the document created in Word, I have the email created in Outlook, I put them together, I send them over to you, maybe I save everything as a PDF document on a file server, so everything is distributed. And what you're saying, how about if we could have all of this in one place? So we have a software that does both documents and collaboration and discussions and emails all in one. And when I open up my scope document, everything is in there, so to speak.
Absolutely. You want to be able to center the collaborative effort around the task that you're working on with all the information that you need to complete the task. So in the case of defining scope, if you and I exchange an email document, chances are there's going to be a whole email discussion that's going to go back and forth as we play this email tennis. And then trying to find all your comments and get all the relevant detail, it often comes in through the email rather than marking changes on the Word document or tracking those different variations. So what's happening is all the information is now scattered across our individual meetings, comments that you have against an email, and actual revisions to the actual Word document. So it'd be helpful, instead of having to go through all those different sources for material, to actually integrate that through one common collaboration solution. So where if we're working on a task to define the scope of a specific project or a specific scope of work, we actually have all that information centered on that task. So all the decision making is centralized, and you can very quickly get access to your information. I mean, I don't know about you, but in your past projects, how many times have you hunted through the file server or combed through your email inbox to find the right version of the document that you're looking for, or the last comment or the last approval that you received from your client?
Oh, hundreds of times, hundreds of times. At my last employer, I was in an organization, in a group where we did a lot of auditing. And so I had to keep every single email that I ever received or sent. So my email archive was gigabytes in size over the 7 years that I had worked for that company. And searching through that just took forever and ever and ever. There was no way you could ever find something, but there was also no way I would ever lose anything. That was the only positive thing. After an hour of searching, I would probably find what I was looking for.
Absolutely. That's the challenge. And you think about an auditor's job, or if you're in a PMO and you have to do a project audit, all the agenda items you're trying to track, all the audit tasks you're trying to track and do follow through, as the project manager is emailing you proof and evidence. And this is good for Sarbanes-Oxley compliance, IT security and control compliance. There just has to be a better way for us to collaborate around these types of work that we're doing. So when you think about task management and schedule management, there has to be a better way of how we collaborate and do work together against the project schedule. As project managers, we all know it's important to have a project schedule, to track against that project schedule. But the challenge with having a project schedule is having to maintain it. And you have that necessary administrative burden that you need to incur in order to figure out, well, how's the team doing? But ideally, the project schedule should be updated as a byproduct of actually doing the work, and not necessarily scheduling another meeting to get an update on where you are on your tasks. The beauty of some of these collaboration solutions is that it gives you shared visibility and shared understanding. So if James is working on your project and he changes the date for a specific task that he's working on, then instantly the entire team knows that his task is delayed or rescheduled, and all that's done without having to have yet again another meeting.
Right. So I think I see what you're saying here. So instead of having a separate schedule, like using, I don't know, Microsoft Project as your scheduling tool, where you have your nice little Gantt chart, and then having a separate tool where you have task assignments, and there you assign the tasks to people, they will drift apart very quickly, because the schedule seems to be static and the tasks are very dynamic. But if we move those together, we have schedule and task in one tool. Is that the idea?
Absolutely. See, I'm a huge fan of Microsoft Project. I love what it's able to do to build a very nice schedule. But the challenge you have is you build this wonderful project schedule, but that data is separate from the actual action of working on the tasks in that project schedule. So a good best practice is you have a weekly project status update where you bring everybody into the room and you walk through the tasks and get an idea of what's the percent complete or what's the new target date that those specific tasks are going to reach. Well, when you use a collaboration tool, you really don't even have to have a schedule update meeting. You just simply have to use the tool, because as you are assigned work and you actually complete those tasks, you just check them off and mark that those tasks were complete on the specific date. And in some of these collaboration solutions, you instantly are notified when a task is completed and everything rolls together. So the data is centralized and the actual action of working the plan is centralized within one common tool. And all that, it promotes better traceability, better productivity, and less overall administrative burden, especially from a project manager's perspective when 90% of their job is done communicating. Well, if I'm spending 90% of my day talking to people, I need that additional time to save that additional time to not focus on administration, but actually communication.
And that takes us to this slide here, checkpoint, questions. Under normal circumstances, Andy does this presentation live in front of an audience, so people can actually ask questions, but we are going to hear nothing but silence. because this is a recorded webinar. So I have prepared some questions for you, Andy. So I'm going to be pretending to be your audience. I'm raising my hand. And my question for you is this. So far, you've painted a rather negative picture of the tools that we are using today. Have you seen organizations where the current tools that we have are being used well?
Well, sure. I think there's still plenty of organizations that do the typical project management collaboration just fine. Using email, using instant messengers, texting folks as needed. All that is still useful, and it's still a representative picture of how real world stuff gets done. I mean, your best practice of making sure you have a project schedule meeting or a chance to update the project schedule on a weekly basis, adopting the Scrum techniques of the daily stand-up meetings. All those are other non-technical ways that work quite well to help facilitate collaboration and communication within an organization. But if you think in the interest of continuous improvement and you see where technology is going, there becomes a new opportunity to embrace this technology and start lessening the administrative burden of where do we stand with project task administration and document management, and start leveraging those tools to provide better capability and better efficiencies to the project teams.
Why then do you think it is that not more people, not more project managers and project teams complain about the current situation? I mean, we all know, I have email, I have attachments. If I send somebody a Microsoft project attachment, file as an attachment, within 2 minutes they write back to me saying, I can't open this. Can you send it to me as a PDF? So why don't more people complain to management about the tools, the inadequacies of the tools that we have to use?
Well, I think part of it is just the key focus of delivery and maintaining that focus of I got to get a project out the door. And also it's the time to put in that thought leadership. Now, having led PMOs in the past, I've heard those complaints. I've heard people say, these tools are not effective. We need better tools. Yet in large organizations, you're constrained. You have constraints around budget. You have constraints around timing and implementation. It's not like you as your individual project team can just go out and pick a new tool to start collaborating on when you're in a large enterprise organization. If you're in a smaller organization, it's a lot easier to do because you're a lot more nimble, a lot faster to execute. But when you look at the spectrum of projects across large enterprise organizations and even the small enterprise organizations, there still is just the continued focus on what can you do to deliver on the project rather than what you need to collaborate. I think these are the kind of tools that don't necessarily have a direct return on investment that you can measure in terms of hard dollar cost savings. Although all of us would readily acknowledge having a tool to help manage data and manage the project would be much, much better than what we have today.
All right, and talking about those tools, we're getting close to the end of the first module here. So let's look ahead, because in module 2 we will be talking about 4 different tools. So 2 questions for you about those tools right now. Why did you select these 4 tools?
As we get into the next module, the tools that I looked at were just tools that I had found in the collaboration space that I have used in my personal project management roles, as well as in some of my professional project management roles. These are just tools that I had found when searching for effective collaboration tools and just starting to do an assessment and playing with the products. I started getting an idea of how these tools can really be applied for effective project management, because all these tools are geared to help you improve your project delivery.
All right, and just to be on the safe side, let's also get a disclaimer out the door here. Are you in any way affiliated with those tools, the manufacturer of those tools?
Oh, not at all. I think what you'll find here, all these tools are free to use. And these are just tools that I'm passionate about and I have really enjoyed using to help manage projects.
Wonderful. And with that, we have come to the end of Module 1 here in our presentation. We will see you again in just a bit in Module 2.